Ambassador Elena Reyes felt the weight of 300 years of human diplomacy on her shoulders as she stood before the Galactic Council. The vast chamber, with its soaring crystalline dome and ornate seats arranged in concentric rings, had once filled her with awe. Today, it only fueled her frustration. "Honorable representatives," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "the data from the Nexus monitoring station cannot be ignored for a third consecutive session. The dimensional rift is expanding at an exponential rate. Without immediate intervention, billions of lives across the Sagittarius arm will be at risk within the solar year." The holographic displays above the chamber floor rotated slowly, showing the anomaly's growth patterns. Red tendrils of energy spiraled outward from what had once been a stable region of space, creeping toward populated systems with each passing day. High Counselor Vexdar of the Vordak Imperium flicked his scaled hand dismissively. "The humans bring us the same alarm every session. The Vordak have monitored that region for 10,000 years. These fluctuations are cyclical, not catastrophic." Elena's diplomatic training nearly failed her. "With respect, Counselor, the monitoring technology the Vordak employ cannot detect subspace variances at quantum resolution. Your instruments were developed last century," interrupted Elder Zelkor of the Morrigan hegemony. "The Council acknowledges humanity's enthusiasm, but we must rely on established science, not experimental readings." The familiar sting of dismissal washed over Elena. For 3 centuries, humanity had served the Council faithfully, mediating conflicts between ancient enemies, developing innovations that benefited all species, and respecting traditions established millennia before Earth discovered fire. Yet whenever humans presented evidence that challenged established thinking, they were treated like precocious children. "The motion to investigate the Nexus anomaly is denied," announced the Supreme Elder, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The Council will reconvene in 30 days to address the Ziloni border dispute." As representatives filed out, Elena stood motionless, staring at the data one final time before it vanished from the displays. The projections had worsened since their last presentation. The Council's inaction wasn't just short-sighted. It was potentially catastrophic. Her aide, Marcus Chen, approached cautiously. "Same result as last month," he observed. "And the month before," Elena replied, collecting her datapads. "Transmit everything to Earth immediately. Include my recommendation." "Are you certain?" Marcus asked, his expression grave. "Once the President receives this." "It's time," Elena said, her decision crystallizing after years of mounting frustration. "We've tried working within their system. We've shown respect for their traditions. We've contributed more innovations in 3 centuries than some species have in millennia. And still, they ignore evidence that contradicts their comfortable assumptions." As her shuttle departed the Council station, Elena watched the massive structure recede into the distance. Its gleaming spires and elegant architecture masked the rot within. Bureaucracy calcified by ages of complacency, innovation stifled by tradition, and evidence dismissed in favor of politics. By the time she reached Earth, President Adeyemi had already called an emergency session of the Global Council. The vote was unprecedented. 96.7% agreement across all human colonies and settlements. The galaxy would remember the President's words for centuries to come. "As of this moment, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We choose our own path among the stars." Laughter rippled through the Council chambers when Earth's withdrawal notice arrived 3 days later. Elder Zelkor of the Morrigan hegemony raised the document with theatrical flair. "Another human tantrum," he announced to widespread amusement. "They'll return within the month, begging forgiveness." Supreme Elder Keltheri nodded sagely. "The young species always threaten departure when they don't get their way. It is the way of children." The laughter died abruptly when urgent communications flooded in from across Council space. The massive human diplomatic station orbiting Centauri Prime had begun retracting its docking arrays. Earth vessels from 1,000 worlds simultaneously initiated departure protocols. Human diplomats, Scientists, engineers, and artists were tendering resignations and booking passage to soul-controlled territories. On the Council's central administrative world, the Vordak ambassador stormed into the human embassy, demanding explanations. He found only a skeleton crew methodically archiving documents and packing cultural artifacts. Captain Maya Yoshida, overseeing the evacuation, met his fury with calm professionalism. "This is absurd," the ambassador hissed. "Your species cannot simply withdraw from millennia of established protocols." "We can and we are," Maya replied, carefully wrapping an ancient Japanese vase. "As per Section 87 of the Council Charter, any species may withdraw with proper notification. Our notification was delivered this morning." The ambassador's scales flushed purple with anger. "The Nexus matter will be reconsidered. We can offer research grants, expansion permits." "You misunderstand," Maya interrupted. "This isn't a negotiation. Humanity is leaving." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out with mechanical precision. Human technicians who had maintained council jump gates for decades trained replacements in hastily organized workshops. Scientists researching cross-species diseases transferred their findings to local teams. Artists whose works had become galactic sensations gathered their creations from prestigious museums. Council officials initially offered incentives, then pleaded, and finally threatened, but the exodus continued without pause. The coordination revealed something the Council had never acknowledged. Human integration into galactic infrastructure went far deeper than anyone had realized. On Keltheri Prime, Maya supervised the evacuation of the Human Cultural Center when a young Keltheri child approached her, clutching the book of Earth fairy tales. "Why must you leave?" the child asked, all four eyes blinking in confusion. Maya knelt down, meeting the child's gaze. "Sometimes friends need time apart to remember why they became friends in the first place." "Will you return?" the child persisted. Maya gently touched the book in the child's hands. "Keep reading our stories. Perhaps one day you'll understand why we had to go." The Council called an emergency session as reports detailed the cascading effects of humanity's departure. Critical systems across dozens of worlds reported staffing shortages. Cultural exchanges abruptly canceled. Research projects indefinitely suspended. As the last human transport disappeared into hyperspace from Council territory, an uncomfortable silence settled across official channels. In private chambers, Council members began to realize a disturbing truth. What they had dismissed as a tantrum might be the most meticulously planned political maneuver in recent galactic history. Elder Zelkor's final report to the Supreme Elder contained just 6 words. They were more essential than we knew. 6 months after humanity's departure, the first major crisis erupted in the Antara sector. The Zaloni Collective and Vordak Mining Corporations had scheduled their centennial resource rights negotiation, a process that for 3 cycles had been mediated by human diplomats known for finding creative compromises that satisfied both parties. Without human negotiators present, the meeting deteriorated within hours. The Vordak delegation, accustomed to human representatives softening their demands, presented terms so aggressive that the Zaloni representatives immediately walked out. By the next morning, Vordak warships had established blockades around key shipping lanes. The impact rippled across 3 sectors overnight. Commodities markets crashed as traders panicked. Supply chains that had functioned smoothly for centuries suddenly faced critical disruptions. The Council hastily dispatched peacekeepers, but without the intricate understanding of both cultures that human diplomats had cultivated, they failed to broker a solution. On the agricultural world of Nu and IV, a more insidious problem emerged. The atmospheric regulators, complex systems that maintained ideal growing conditions for the planet's crops, began failing without their scheduled updates. The local governors, who had delegated all technical matters to human engineers for decades, discovered too late that crucial maintenance protocols existed only in the minds of the departed humans. "How could we be so dependent on them?" demanded Governor Thaxel, as crops withered across the northern continent. "They've been part of the Council for mere centuries." His chief administrator replied grimly, because they worked harder, adapted faster, and solved problems we didn't even recognize existed. Meanwhile, humanity flourished in self-imposed isolation. Freed from council restrictions, Earth ships ventured deep into the previously forbidden Orion Spur. New colonies took root on worlds the Council had deemed unsuitable for intelligent habitation, but which human ingenuity quickly made viable. Dr. Imani Okafor, now leading an expanded Nexus Anomaly research team, made breakthrough discoveries in dimensional physics. Working without Council oversight, her team developed technologies that would have been restricted under previous regulations. Every finding remained strictly classified, property of humanity alone. When the Morrigan, once humanity's closest allies, sent a delegation seeking help with cascading technology failures throughout their core systems, they found a transformed Sol system. Massive orbital structures circled Earth's moon. Ships of revolutionary design patrolled system boundaries. The once open society had become carefully guarded. Admiral Takeda received the Morrigan representatives aboard Sentinel Station. Their pleas for technical assistance were met with diplomatic politeness but firm resolution. The Council made its position clear when it ignored our warnings, Takeda said, her expression betraying no emotion. Now we must focus on protecting our own future. But the Morrigan supported you in council sessions, their ambassador protested. We were friends. Takeda's gaze softened momentarily. Friends listen when warnings are given. Friends stand together when evidence is presented. Where was the Morrigan voice when Earth was dismissed? As the Morrigan delegation departed, they carried troubling news back to the Council. Humanity wasn't merely sulking in isolation. They were advancing at a pace that would soon make the technological gap between Earth and the Council unbridgeable. And still, the Nexus Anomaly grew, exactly as human scientists had predicted. The Nexus Anomaly violently expanded exactly as human models had predicted. The first gravitational shockwave hit the Sagittarius arm without warning, destabilizing the orbits of 3 Council worlds. Emergency broadcasts flooded all frequencies as billions faced immediate evacuation with nowhere to go. On Talos Prime, the outermost affected world, Governor Len watched in horror as the night sky twisted with impossible colors. The humans warned us. He whispered to his aide as they rushed toward the evacuation shuttles. For 3 sessions, they brought evidence. We laughed them away. The ancient Morrigan trade routes, stable for 20,000 years, became treacherous mazes of spatial distortion. Ships attempting passage disappeared or emerged damaged, their crews babbling about time dilation and dimensional bleeding. Council emergency fleets deployed but quickly proved insufficient for the catastrophe scale. Refugees poured into nearby systems, overwhelming border worlds unprepared for the sudden influx. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves crammed together on overcrowded stations, competing for dwindling supplies as the Council struggled to coordinate a response. On Earth, the Security Council debated their response in a live-streamed session that captivated humanity. The chamber divided sharply. Some advocated ignoring the crisis entirely, while others argued that innocent lives shouldn't suffer for their leader's arrogance. Admiral Takeda presented the strategic assessment. The Council has requested our assistance, specifically Dr. Okafor's dimensional stabilization technology. Without it, their scientists estimate 16 billion lives at immediate risk, with potential cascading effects throughout the Sagittarius arm. Minister Chen countered. They dismissed our warnings. Let them face the consequences of their arrogance. President Adeyemi sat silently until a lieutenant delivered a data tablet. He studied it, then activated the chamber's main display. The screen filled with images from refugee ships, children of a dozen species huddled in crowded cargo bays, elderly beings administered emergency medical care in makeshift clinics, families clutching whatever possessions they'd managed to save. This is not about the Council, Adeyemi said quietly. This is about them. He stood, addressing humanity through the cameras. We left the Council because they failed to protect all galactic citizens equally. If we turn away now, we become what we despised. His words echoed across human colonies and settlements. "We will render aid, but on our terms." Within 24 hours, Earth activated its emergency response protocols. Relief vessels loaded with supplies and evacuation ships mobilized from every human world. Most significantly, Dr. Okafor's team prepared portable versions of their experimental dimensional stabilizers. The Council expected aid to flow through their authority, but humanity bypassed them entirely. Human ships arrived directly at affected worlds, coordinating with local authorities and ignoring Council protocols. When Council representatives attempted to assert control over the human relief effort, Captain Wei of the medical ship Mercy delivered humanity's new stance. "We're here for the people, not the politicians. Stand aside or stand alone." As the first human stabilizers deployed at the anomaly's edge, their effect was immediate and visually stunning. The dimensional chaos receded like a tide, creating zones of normal space that allowed safe evacuation corridors. The technology the Council had dismissed as speculative now represented the only hope for billions. Watching from the Council Emergency Headquarters, Supreme Elder Kel Theri realized with growing dread that humanity wasn't merely offering assistance, they were demonstrating superiority. Supreme Elder Kel Theri, whose lineage had guided the Council for 8 generations, faced the most humiliating moment of his 5-century life. Standing before the emergency session of remaining Council members, he proposed the unthinkable. "We must formally request humanity's return," he stated, his ancient voice quavering slightly. "The Nexus crisis cannot be contained without their technology." The chamber erupted in protests. "Impossible," shouted the Vordak representative. "They abandoned their duties. They should beg to return." Kel Theri silenced the chamber with a gesture. "Their stabilizers have created safe passages where our best scientists failed. Their evacuation operations have saved millions while our fleets struggle to deploy. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." 2 days later, Kel Theri himself arrived at the edge of Sol system with the grandest diplomatic fleet assembled in centuries. 100 ships representing every remaining Council species formed a magnificent procession, their ancient emblems displayed proudly. His message boomed with the authority of 50,000 years of galactic governance. "The Council extends its hand in reconciliation. Return to your rightful place, humans, and we shall grant you unprecedented privileges. Permanent seats on the High Council, unrestricted research permits, expanded colonial rights." Admiral Takeda arranged to meet the delegation aboard Halfway Station, a neutral trading post at the solar system's edge. The human representatives arrived in utilitarian vessels bearing no ceremonial markings. They brought no ornate gifts, no flowery speeches, only data tablets and stern expressions. The Council delegation entered the meeting chamber in full ceremonial regalia. Elder Zelkor presented an ancient artifact as a peace offering, a crystal sphere said to contain the light of a long-dead star, traditionally given to signify new beginnings. Takeda accepted it with appropriate protocol before activating a holographic display that filled the chamber. The projection showed a complete restructuring of galactic governance. Transparent voting systems, equal status for all species regardless of technological advancement, merit-based leadership positions, and evidence-driven policymaking. "These aren't requests," she explained to their stunned faces. "These are prerequisites." Kel Theri struggled to comprehend. "You misunderstand. We offer you elevation, not revolution. The Council structure has maintained peace for 50 millennia. Elena Reyes, now Earth's chief diplomat, stepped forward. That structure ignored evidence, privileged ancient species over younger ones, and nearly led to catastrophe. Humanity doesn't want special treatment or ancient privileges. We want a system that works for everyone, or we want nothing at all." The Council delegation withdrew in disarray. Their internal communications revealed panic. The humans weren't negotiating for better terms. They were demanding the complete transformation of galactic civilization. Within 3 days, the Morgan hegemony publicly broke from the Council, signaling their support for Earth's vision. The Ziloni Collective followed, then the Nomadic Wayfarers, and finally the reclusive synth, species with little in common except their dissatisfaction with the existing order. In his private chambers, Supreme Elder Keltheri studied humanity's demands again, searching for compromise and finding none. What the humans proposed wasn't merely change. It was the end of everything he had known, the dismantling of traditions older than human civilization itself. Yet as reports arrived of 3 more systems destabilizing from the anomaly's expansion, the terrible truth became unavoidable. The old ways had failed. The Council could accept transformation, or it could perish clinging to the past. Dr. Imani Okafor stood before the Earth Security Council, her holographic presentation showing the latest anomaly readings. The dimensional rift had grown another 12% since their last intervention. Our stabilizers are working, but not quickly enough, she explained, brushing a silver-streaked dreadlock from her face. The Council's scientific response remains fragmented and ineffective. Without coordinated action, we estimate 16 more systems will experience dimensional destabilization within 30 days. President Adeyemi studied the projections. Your recommendation, Doctor? A full-scale intervention, she replied without hesitation. 200 ships deploying synchronized stabilizer arrays at calculated nodes surrounding the anomaly. My team has refined the technology, improving efficiency by 60%. The operation carries risk, but our simulations show an 83% chance of success. The debate lasted 9 hours. Some counselors feared the mission would be seen as Earth imposing its will on galactic affairs. Others worried about deploying valuable technology, where it could be studied or stolen by Council forces. In the end, the images of continuing evacuation efforts from affected worlds, billions of lives still in danger, proved decisive. 2 weeks later, 200 Earth vessels entered affected regions without Council authorization. Each carried Dr. Okafor's enhanced dimensional stabilizers, technology developed from research the Council had previously restricted as too unpredictable. The nomadic wayfarers, long treated as second-class citizens of the galaxy, eagerly provided navigational support through the distorted spaces they had traversed for generations. Aboard the flagship Horizon, Captain Eli Chen coordinated the most ambitious rescue operation in human history. The fleet moved with precision through areas the Council declared impossible to navigate, evacuating endangered settlements and deploying stabilization arrays at strategic points around the anomaly. Third array activated, reported Lieutenant Park as another stabilizer came online. The view screen showed the dimensional chaos visibly receding, normal space reasserting itself as the device's field expanded. Energy patterns stabilizing across the sector. Captain Chen nodded approval. Transmit coordinates for the 4th deployment point, and alert medical teams. We have evacuation ships inbound from Talas II. The Vordak Imperium, seeing a chance to reassert Council authority, dispatched battle cruisers to intercept the human fleet. Their commander broadcast throughout the region. Human vessels, you operate without Council sanction. Power down and prepare for boarding. The confrontation in the Antares sector became an instant legend. When the Vordak cruisers opened fire, their weapons' energy was absorbed by previously undetected field generators on the human vessels. Without firing a single shot in return, the Earth ships emitted precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses that neutralized the Vordak weapons and propulsion systems, leaving the mighty warships drifting harmlessly. Captain Chen opened communications with the disabled Vordak flagship. We didn't come to fight. We came to save lives, including yours. Your life support systems remain operational. Your engines will restart in 3 hours, by which time we'll be gone. Follow us and interfere again, and the shutdown will be permanent. As the human fleet continued its mission, refugees from dozens of species witnessed something unprecedented. Aid arriving without political conditions, rescue operations conducted with ruthless efficiency, and technology freely shared with anyone willing to help. Most striking to many observers was the complete absence of Council authorization or involvement. Across emergency channels, a phrase began to spread among the evacuees. the humans left to save us all. As the Nexus anomaly began to stabilize through human intervention, a profound shift rippled through galactic society. Information networks buzzed with unprecedented openness as citizens shared their experiences. Stories spread of human ships arriving where Council aid failed, of stabilization technology freely shared with affected worlds, of evacuation operations conducted without regard for species status or political affiliation. Species that had blindly followed Council traditions for millennia started questioning everything about the established order. Why had they ignored human warnings? Why had the Council's structure remained unchanged for 50,000 years, while the galaxy evolved around it? Most troublingly, why had the supposedly advanced Council proven so ineffective during a genuine crisis? On the neutral world of Tau Ceti Prime, representatives from 63 species, both former Council members and those who had never been invited to join, gathered at humanity's invitation. The meeting lacked the elaborate ceremonies and rigid hierarchies of Council sessions. Instead, it focused on practical solutions and equal participation. In the central plaza where delegates convened, Elder Zelkor of the Morrigan observed with unease that no elevated platform separated leaders from others. Ambassador Elena Reyes welcomed delegates with refreshing directness. We face a destabilized galaxy and a Council unable to adapt. We have two choices: rebuild the same flawed structure or create something better. During 3 intense weeks, they drafted the Dawn Coalition Charter based on humanity's proposed principles. The debates were heated but productive. When the Ziloni representative objected that some species lacked the technological sophistication to contribute equally, Elena responded with what became the Coalition's defining philosophy. Different doesn't mean less valuable. The youngest species may see solutions the oldest have forgotten to imagine. The Wayfarer nomads, never granted Council membership despite their unparalleled knowledge of unusual space phenomena, proved this point immediately. Their ancient star charts of the Nexus region revealed patterns that helped Dr. Okafor refine her stabilization technology further. The Council, now reduced to a fraction of its former membership, sent observers who reported back a disturbing truth. The humans had created something revolutionary, a system where advancement came through cooperation rather than competition, where technology served all species equally instead of becoming leverage for the powerful. Throughout Coalition space, joint research teams formed across species lines, sharing knowledge previously hoarded as political capital. Transportation networks reorganized to serve population needs rather than political boundaries. Military vessels from former rivals conducted joint patrols to protect reconstruction efforts. After much internal debate, the remaining Council members requested admission to the Coalition, accepting the same status as all other signatories. The moment when Supreme Elder Keltheri removed his ancient insignia of office to sit as an equal representative marked the end of 50,000 years of galactic hierarchy. As the session closed, Elena found herself approached by a young Vordak diplomat, a species humans had considered their most intractable opponents. My ancestors would consider this chaos, he admitted, gesturing to the mingling representatives forming cross-species working groups. And what do you consider it? Elena asked. The Vordak studied the vibrant collaboration surrounding them, the beginning of something better than what came before. Across the galaxy, as stabilization technologies contained the anomalies spread and relief efforts reached the most distant affected worlds, beings of all species watched information feeds from Tau Ceti Prime. Many had expected humanity's departure from the Council to bring disorder. Instead, it had catalyzed the most significant advancement in galactic governance since the Council's founding. 5 years after humanity's departure from the Council, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The Nexus anomaly, once a catastrophic threat, had become the foundation for revolutionary science. What began as emergency stabilization technology evolved into systems allowing instantaneous travel between previously unreachable regions of space. The new Coalition headquarters, constructed within the stabilized region of the former anomaly, housed research teams from 93 species working together without hierarchy. The structure itself symbolized the new order. Built jointly by architects from 20 different worlds, it incorporated elements from civilizations spanning the full spectrum of galactic history. Dr. Okafor, now leading the Interspecies Dimensional Physics Authority, guided her diverse team through the final calibrations of the largest stabilizer array ever constructed. The Nexus Gate would officially open tomorrow, connecting regions of space previously separated by months of conventional travel. The power distribution looks optimal, she noted as a Wayfarer navigation specialist and Zaloni quantum engineer made final adjustments. We've come a long way from those emergency deployments 5 years ago. Across the station's observation deck, Ambassador Elena Rice watched ships from across the galaxy navigate the shimmering pathways of the stabilized Nexus. The traffic represented every member of the coalition. Former enemies now conducting joint research, ancient rivals sharing technology, species once deemed primitive, contributing unique insights. "Quite a view, isn't it?" came a gravelly voice behind her. Elena turned to find an elderly Vordak, the same representative who had dismissed her warnings about the Nexus years ago. Age had softened his scaled features, and his once imposing ceremonial armor had been replaced with the simple uniform of the Coalition's Advisory Council. "Ambassador Vexstar," she acknowledged. "I didn't know you were stationed here." "I requested the assignment," he replied, his gaze fixed on the traffic patterns. "I wanted to see what rose from the ashes of my failure." They stood in silence, watching a massive research vessel safely enter one of the dimensional corridors, disappearing in a flash of precisely controlled energy to emerge thousands of light years away. "We thought your species too impulsive, too emotional to lead," Vexstar admitted, his battle-scarred face softened with humility. "We failed to understand that your emotions were your greatest strength. You could not stand by while others suffered, even those who had wronged you." Elena considered the paradox that defined humanity's rise. Sometimes walking away from a broken system required more courage than remaining within it. Sometimes abandonment became the catalyst for transformation. "The Council feared change," she observed. It saw stability as the absence of conflict rather than the ability to adapt. Vexstar nodded slowly. "We confused age with wisdom. We never imagined our youngest members would become our teachers." As the station's lights adjusted to evening cycle, they watched a fleet of small vessels practicing navigation maneuvers through the dimensional corridors. The pilots included members of every coalition species, being trained by human instructors who had once been denied leadership roles under Council protocols. "Tomorrow's ceremony will make history," Vexstar said. "The official opening of the first Nexus Gate." "One of many," Elena replied. "The Coalition has approved construction of 6 more." The elderly Vordak's expression revealed genuine wonder, an emotion his species rarely displayed. "We feared chaos when humans left the Council. We never understood that sometimes the old order must dissolve before a better one can emerge." As they turned to leave, Elena noticed a monument recently installed near the observation deck, a simple crystal sphere containing the light of a long-dead star. The ancient peace offering Keltheri had presented during that failed negotiation now bore an inscription in the languages of all Coalition species. From crisis came unity. From abandonment came renewal. From humanity came hope.